opened his trunk and she said, "Now Billy is going to get homesick." And I'm like, is that like a command? You know? But sure enough, 2 nights later, he was homesick and crying and waking me up in the middle of the night, and I'm like sitting down on the front porch of the cabin talking to him. He looked at me and said, "My mom said I'd be homesick." Well, you didn't disappoint her, did you? So they'll develop a sense of I can't do it really easily. What's the acting out version of this, of being overprotected? I think it's kind of interesting.
My mom will fix it. My mom will fix it.
Yes, it's almost, my mom will fix it, she says. It's almost an entitlement. I need taken care of, and I should be taken care of. You know, I shouldn't have to handle these hard things, right? So what do they need? With the little withdrawn, internal, acting in, fearful, incompetent types, they need us to challenge them and challenge for them the notion that they are weak, okay? In other words, there's information that they need to learn from your eyes. They've learned something from their parents' eyes. They've been taught something tacitly by their eyes that they can't handle things, that they're weak. And they need to relearn. They need to be taught something new about being strong. And there's so much you can do there as a teacher. You can give children so much regarding this. Some children need us to find their nurturing parts and their tender parts and their needy parts and help them feel accepted and all that. But some kids need us to help them find their strong parts. All right? One of the things that I've experienced a lot when I've worked with kids in my office is I have like a marker board and pens and all that. And invariably, I would see these kind of kids, the ones who don't think they can handle things, and they would take out a marker and they'd go, and they would hand it toward me. And I'd go, "What? Like, you need help?" And they're like, I'm like, can I get the top off the marker? And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, you know, I'd really like to help you, but if I did, I'd be lying." And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Well, I don't like lying. Lying's wrong. Because if I did that, I'd be saying, yeah, I also believe that you're not strong enough to figure out how to get the top off the marker." And that'd be a lie, because I think you can figure out how to get the top off. And they go like that every time. And I would kind of shrug, like, I hate being right always. You know? They needed me to not let them be weak, okay? And what a great role for y'all as teachers to play by challenging them. You need to be able to manage the anxiety the parents can't manage. What if they fail? What if they can't do it? What if they feel bad about themselves? If you can manage that anxiety and push them, they will develop from your eyes a sense of what they can do. With the more entitled ones who say, "You should fix it for me," we just do the same thing a little more aggressively. We sort of say, "You know, I'm not going to rescue you, and you can figure this out, and in fact, you kind of need to figure it out." All right? And we need to kind of push them a little harder on that. And they won't like that at first, but it'll help them grow. If you can enlist parents in that process, that'd be cool too. What do these kind of parents need? What do overprotective parents, what could you give them? The way I like to talk about this is, in a sense, what you need to give them is reassurance. This is really parenting parents. You need to kind of empower them too. We need to teach these kind of parents that, newsflash, they and their child can handle difficulty. Okay? They really don't know this at some level, that they and their child can handle difficulty. I want to normalize failure to these kind of parents, that their kids can fail and it can be okay. They can survive. I tell parents lots of times that the goal of parenting is not to protect your children from suffering, but it's to teach them to learn to suffer well. And so many parents, as one headmaster told me, instead of preparing their children for the road, they want to prepare the road for their children. And what we need to help these parents see is there's a legitimacy to not just roots, but also wings. Not just tenderness and protection, but also challenging, that their children can handle that. So I think there's a ton y'all can do for those kind of parents in that department. If you have questions as we go along, jot them down. We'll do some questions at the end. The authoritarian parent is great. These are always fun. This is that kind of controlling parent, the legalistic parent, the demanding parent. They can be this way at home with their kids. They'll be this way with you. They sort of know better what you ought to be doing than you do, and they'll kind of make that clear. And they're into sort of do as you're told with their children, no questions, no excuses, and they'll sort of pressure you in the same way. So they're actually easy to diagnose. It's easy to know when you have one of these because you'll cringe when you see a phone message from them. It's like, oh God, not them again. You know, I'm in trouble. You know, what are they hearing now? And you'll know how an authoritarian parent. It's easy. In a lot of ways, these are we're never happy no matter what parent. You know, we've been unhappy with every teacher our child has had so far, so, you know, join the party. You get a t-shirt, you know. They're not happy with me either. One headmaster told me that he had so many I'm not happy conferences with one set of parents that they had their own coffee cup in the teacher's lounge. This is kind of, to put it in spiritual context, this is kind of legalism in some ways. This is about you are your behavior. And this is a lot of how these children feel. There's only 3 ways that kids can respond to that kind of authoritarianism. That sort of authority-based discipline, the controlling thing. Number 1 is they can become frightened and compliant. In other words, they face a parent's ire, a parent's demands, and they feel scared, and they learn the hard way to do what they're told no matter what, and they become good little soldiers. Now, this is good, like, in the immediate, and this makes them act really well-behaved at grandma's house. And they're good little soldiers, and they do what they're told, and parents tend to like that. But it's also really sad because it doesn't really prepare children for adulthood. Compliance is handy when they're little, but how are the compliant adults doing in life? You know? So authoritarian parenting that just creates compliance misses the whole aspect of how a child learns to be strong and how a child learns to be independent. That's a really important tension we have. So one direction they can go, though, is compliant. Another they can go is obvious, and that is they can be a rebel. And that is, if you draw a line in the sand, they're just glad to cross it. You know, show me where it is. I'll do it, you know, I'll take you on. And if they want to act out their anger at a controlling parent, school will do very nicely. Thank you very much. You know, you're a great one to go there with. Some kids act well at school and then act up at home. The ones I worry about are the ones who act well at home and then act badly at school. That tells me a lot about these parents, like how scared this child is. They need somewhere where they can cut up. That would really prick some interest for me. Thirdly, and you see this a lot in more well-to-do families, and that's they become a sneak. And that is, they're good at looking like they're compliant, but, you know, you've told them they can't eat in their room, and you find, you know, 200 Twinkie wrappers in their drawer, you know. Or they have stars in their Bible, but if you read their text messages, they're like, you know, doing stuff they've seen on Cinemax. That's what I hear all the time in my office is, we thought she was such a good child, but look at what we found. And usually that's their only way of making sense of feeling controlled. So, I think these are the only 3 options when we have an authoritarian sort of system with discipline. So what do these kind of kids need? What does a compliant child need? Give me y'all's thoughts on that. A child who's learned just to be good all the time, they're going to never give you trouble in class. How can you give to them? How can you help them?
Try to help them find their talents.
Yes. Help them to find their talent, she says. I would go a little bit broader with that and say, that child needs someone to help find them. In other words, that there is a them that matters more than just how obedient they are. In other words, a sense of loving, gentle grace outside of the context of behavior. In other words, to be known as them, not as whether they're a good boy or bad boy. These kids often develop a sense of pride in, I'm the good one. And they'll be the ones who tattle on other kids in your class. You know, she's doing so-and-so. In other words, I want you to see how good I am. That's kind of what they're saying. So one easy way to do that is to ask these kind of kids questions about them. Not about how good they're doing, but if you have a chance, say, you know, what do you like? What's your favorite game? What's your favorite song? What's your favorite thing we did in class? And just talk to them about them, not about how good they're doing or not. A sneak or a rebel, they kind of need the same sort of thing. They need loving limits